majestically and kicks the goal. Making something out of nothing.
Malcheski, is that the grand final?
Jimmy Martell can make a hero of himself.
That is a brilliant snap. He's kicked the goal and Freeman to win it after the siren. What a game of football at the MCG.
Out of this last play, Bill Chambers, ball to the back, kick by Redby. Rowan! It is unbelievable. It's an extraordinary night.
And he's going to milk the clock, so
they're going to win.
Welcome to the Protected Zone. I'm Eddie J, broadcasting from Sydney, and my co-host in Padang is...
Hi, it's Linton and I'm here. Hello to all the listeners around the world that listen to the Protected Zone.
We do have a growing audience, and you can listen to the Protected Zone through iTunes. You can listen to us on SoundCloud or YouTube, or you can go straight to our website, theprotectedzone.com. So how's your week been?
It's a bit tiring travelling around, and I might have said last week I could relate to all those teams from the West that has to travel to the East Coast regularly. It's not a long distance, but a slight time difference and going up and down. Even though I didn't go up and down, I travelled on the road, but still, travelling is a taxing thing. And it really favours the eastern teams based in the East Coast.
Oh, yes, it definitely does. But did you feel like the West Coast Eagle team or a Fremantle team or travelling to the east, or did you feel like a Victorian team travelling to the west?
I am a bit confused, I thought I went east to get to the west coast of Malay Peninsula, but I'm saying that a lot of West Coast players, Fremantle teams, or Western Bulldogs for that matter, they get confused. Are we going east or are we going south? Are we going north? This is like a football.
Yes, it's exactly like football. So whether it's north, east, south or west, my point for this round is that it's a very fine line between pleasure and pain in AFL football.
Yes, for the players and the fans and, so many close games. We are just like broken records every week. We talking about thrillers, nail-biters, and this round was no different. There are so many games decided at the last minute, as you say. You thought you were experiencing pleasure, and all of a sudden it's so painful. You get the double whammo, pleasure and pain.
Yes, you do, and it was probably the most noted in the Essendon-Sydney game, where Essendon were 19 points up with 3 minutes left to play in the game, and I'm very sure that they would have been expecting to win that game, but then when the siren went, Gary Rowan had the ball in his hands, he was lining up for goals, and he kicked a goal. Sydney won by a point.
Yes, do you remember that the good old Lee Matthews rules? How does it go?
Oh yes, the Lee Matthews rule. Well, his mathematical formula is that if there's 3 minutes left and you're 3 goals down, you've still got a chance.
So good old Lee Matthews, premiership player, captain, coach, he was right.
Yes, he was right in this case, where Sydney was 3 goals down, they had 3 minutes left to go and they won the match.
Whoa, good old Lee.
Now this round was very unusual in the sense that there's 9 matches in every round, and in this round we had 4 matches decided by less than 3 points, and all of them went down to the wire. And when I say they went down to the wire, they did really go down to the wire in the final 2 seconds, after the siren, in the final 30 seconds, and in the final 31 seconds. All of them were decided in the final minute, and that's quite fantastic football, isn't it?
Yes, I sort of noticed that on YouTube, last 2 minutes clips from every match, last 2 minutes, sponsored by Swiss watchmaker. I wouldn't mention the name of the company. I thought it could be a conspiracy. I didn't notice that YouTube clips before, but these days you just watch that clips, last 2 minutes, and wow, that's great. 2 minutes clip. That is so good. And maybe they would be sponsoring this, new format of footy the AFL was thinking about, which we are going to discuss later, AFLX, but they may be behind that idea. If you can pack so much into last 2 minutes, well, why do we have to play 118 minutes?
Well, that brings up a very interesting existential question. And in those 4 games that we mentioned before, 3 of them were won by teams that had the final kick for goal. And one team, Fremantle against Geelong, they lost the game because they missed the goal. They only scored a point and they lost by 2 points. But it is that existential question. Is it those final minutes in the match that defines the game, or is it what happens in the first couple of minutes of the match, or is it the final part of the second quarter? What really makes the game?
I think every coach of the football teams discussing that. Yeah, like North Melbourne this year has had so many honourable losses, and it was their second game this year that they lost by 1 point, and they've been sort of having that 1-pointer so many times, and they lose all the time. So teams like North Melbourne, I think, happened again.
Yes, it did happen again, but in the case of North Melbourne, is it something that they're not doing right in the final 5 minutes of the game, or the first 5 minutes of the game, or the midpoint part of the game?
I think it's, 120 minutes footy game goes on for 120 minutes, so every minute's count, but you can't maintain that sort of concentration throughout the game, so players sort of doze off, or in the middle of the game you lose Joel Selwood or whatever, and sort of chemistry changes. But you got to sort of tune up for the last 2 minutes. Okay, we got to gear up to that last 2 minutes that counts most. And on that account, Essendon failed miserably. They're more than 3 goals up, only 3 minutes to go. They dozed off at wrong time.
Yes, they did. And once again, AFL is the metaphor for life in general. So it's not the final 5 minutes of your life that defines you, or the first 5 minutes of your life that defines you, or the midway point, or whatever the case might be. It's your entire life that defines your life. And in the game of AFL, it's the same thing. It's the entire game that defines the game. So, but you're absolutely right. Essendon should have been able to finish up that match with a victory, but they just fell asleep. I think they must have thought, there's only 3 minutes left in this game, we're 3 goals up, we should win, and they completely forgot about the Lee Matthews rule.
Yeah, on the other hand, Melbourne was superb. They notched their first win in Subiaco for so many years, and their performance was so incredible. And Nathan Jones was missing, and Viney, he was just fantastic. He was just like Joel Selwood. He got injured but came back on, carrying the injury, but played, like a captain's game.
So we had those very close matches. We had 4 of those. But my favourite match of the round was the Hawthorn against Adelaide game. And most of the people in the media were calling this the upset of the season. But was it really an upset?
Interesting. We thought we talked about the same thing last week when the bottom side beating the top side. That keeps happening, and we keep using this phrase. Oh, is this upset of the week? No, it's upset of the season. We can't keep on using that phrase all the time. Let's call it the best upset in the history.
I think we should go the whole hog here. Yes, it was one of the greatest upsets in the history of the game. And it was just interesting to see that Adelaide were being slowly picked apart by a team that wasn't meant to be. Very few people predicted that Hawthorn would win. We used one of our great formulas last week to predict that Hawthorn would win, but we were one of the very few people in the media to do that.
Yeah, Alistair Clarkson set up their defence very brilliantly, with hardly, no household names, no Josh Gibson. Those young players did well, and they held star forwards like Eddie Betts and Tex Walker. Adelaide has got multiple options to score, but they were just so quiet. I think Alistair Clarkson heard our program last week, and he had a confidence.
He certainly had confidence after listening to our program last week. And it just goes to show how even this entire season is. At the beginning of the year, we talked about Adelaide being the favourites for the competition, and then Geelong, and then I don't think we've really talked about other teams. Greater Western Sydney. There's a couple of teams that have been earmarked as premiership favourites, but that's a long lost memory now. Like, who are the favourites for the season now?
Well, all about peaking at the right time, peaking at the last 2 minutes. And, now we are talking about Melbourne. Even we have to discuss Sydney. And it's a mouth-watering prospect this weekend, which we will talk about later, Melbourne versus Sydney.
But would you say that Port Adelaide is the new favourite at the moment, or do you think it's still too even to even start discussing those sort of things?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned the theory that they are consistently inconsistent. A win follows a loss follows a win. But they got out of that formula. They string together 2 wins in a row. So Port may be a real deal, but there are only 4 teams allowed in the top 4. Now, who's going to be there?
Well, that is a question that I definitely cannot answer at the moment. One other point that did come up in the media this week was that they mentioned that 1928 was the most even season ever, and it had the most games decided by less than 3 points. Now, already in 2017, we've already had more games decided by less than 3 points, and we've only reached just over the halfway point. We've already had more games decided by less than 3 points than the entire 1928 season, which had held the record for the most games decided by less than 3 points. So that's an amazing statistic.
Yes, we have to keep using this record-breaking, thrillers, nail-biting, upsets. I think AFL should be proud of their products. The footy is just fantastic this year. You keep saying odd year. Oh, is this even year? 2017, it's very odd to be so even.
AFLX, what do you know about this?
What's that stand for?
I'm not sure what the X stands for. I do know what AFL stands for, but X, could it be X-rated? Could it be extreme? Could it be extrapolation? I'm not sure, but it's AFLX. It's a 2020 version of AFL.
Oh no, do we need that? We just said it's the best year. It's the best. Why do you have to play with the rules? I mean, AFL people have got this idea that they have to keep on inventing something, new rules, new this, new that, and now this format, AFLX. Why?
Well, for the audience members that don't know what AFLX actually is, as I mentioned before, the AFL has introduced this concept which is similar to cricket's 2020 version or rugby sevens or any other miniature game of a game. But it's the rules of the AFL, but it will be played on a soccer ground, 7 players per team. There's no bounce after a goal, it's just a kick in like after a point, and there's 10-minute quarters. So roughly each game will last for 40 minutes, but as you pointed out, the 2017 season has been absolutely successful so far. It's been a brilliant game to watch. So what problem is the AFL trying to fix?
Well, when it's working, why do you bother playing with it, AFL should just, stay clear and smoke something nice and just watch and enjoy the games. I can see some problems, just the rules or scopes you mentioned. Playing in soccer field, it's about half the size of usual AFL ground. So players with long kicks almost score from one end to the other.
Well, that might be an interesting part of this particular game. So I sense that you're a bit of a traditionalist when it comes to AFL. I'm not so averse to the whole idea. I'd suggest try it out, let's see what it's like. But I think they just have to be very, very careful, the AFL, because they've, as I mentioned, they've had a very brilliant season. I think they need to see what happened to Test cricket when they introduced 2020 cricket. Hardly anybody ever watches Test cricket, and they do get huge crowds at the 2020 games, but will the same thing happen in AFL?
I'm not sure. It's quite different, but I watched a game of football, an exhibition match played in a baseball stadium in Tokyo about 20 years ago, I think. And it was just awful. Smaller number of players, shorter quarters. It just didn't work. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago that there are too many runners and officials on the ground. The ground looks crowded and just there was no flow. Yeah, while it's working, why do bother fix it?
Well, let's see what happens with this AFLX. And I think the AFL just has to make sure that AFLX doesn't make ex-AFL, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. On the other hand, what's not working is Australian Liberal Party. They need to be fixed, isn't it?
Oh, yes, they've got quite a few leadership issues going at the moment. The former Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, he's decided that he wants to be Prime Minister now, even though Malcolm Turnbull is the current Prime Minister. So it's been fun and games. I've been getting my popcorn out to watch this leadership tussle, and it's quite amazing. It's always interesting to see a leadership tussle in politics.
Especially the Liberal Party.
Yes, especially when it's the Liberal Party. I'm very happy about that. But looking at leadership issues in politics, are there any coaches under the pump anymore? It seems to have been very quiet recently.
Yes, at the beginning of the season, we sort of penciled in possibly the Rocket Eade at the Suns, Nathan Buckley at Collingwood, and even the Tigers coach, Hardwick. Those three will not be coaching at the end of 2017. Do you think they're all safe now?
Well, they seem to be fairly safe, at least within the media. There hasn't been much talk about any coaching changes or anything like that. But you've probably noticed that whenever there's a political leadership turmoil, the media gets right into it. Whenever there's coaching turmoil, the media gets into it as well. But it seems to be fairly quiet at the moment. So I'd say that Brad Scott would be one under the pump, but who knows what's going on there? It seems like there's no coach that's doing disastrously this year.
Yes, that's a result of, main events, products are good. Who bothers talking about the leadership issues? That says something about the Liberal Party, their policies and all that sort of things don't get mentioned. So the media naturally, turn their attention to the writable things like leadership. While, footy teams are performing on the ground, who cares who coaches? And, everyone forgets about how bad Nathan Buckley is when the Magpies are winning. Hardwick is secure. Rocket Eade is okay. You mentioned one of the Scott brothers. They're interchangeable. So if Brad is having a problem, just put in Chris. No one can tell the difference. That's what the twins are all about.
That's a very good point. So the coach of Geelong, Chris Scott, could easily swap with the coach of North Melbourne, Brad Scott, and no one would know any better.
Yeah, and the Brad can, coach Geelong, and players won't notice. Oh, hey, Chris. Oh, are you Brad? No, it's Scott brothers, mate.
So it looks like we might not be getting any coaching leadership issues before the end of the season. But do you think we'll see a new Prime Minister before the end of this season?
Oh, which country?
Of any country.
Yes, there's actually a bit of upheaval happening, scandal breaking out, big scandals coming out in Japan. And Prime Minister Abe is reputed to be sick as well. So it's a nice one to keep an eye on.
Oh, yes, we'll definitely keep an eye on that. So we might be having a new Japanese Prime Minister. We might be getting a new Australian Prime Minister. But coaches are safe for the time being.
That is very good, yeah, because the footy is working.
Our regular listeners would realise that each week we give one team a new team song, and we've gone through most of them, but while we were collating the list, we realised that we hadn't done a new team song for the Sydney Swans, so I think it's about time this week.
Yeah, I must say, Sydney Swans has got a very nice song. I quite like the lyrics and the tune, and flowing very well. It's one of the team songs I don't mind hearing, even though your team is playing against Sydney and Sydney winning, but that song is quite good.
Yes, well, let's give it a listen.
Cheer, cheer the red and the white, honour the name by day and by night, lift that noble banner high, shake down the thunder from the sky. What though the odds be great or small, Swans will go in and win overall, while her loyal sons are marching onward to victory.
So it's one of your favourite songs.
Yeah, well, but Eddie, you said it wasn't their club song, team song, until 1961.
Yes, that's actually true. The actual song that they use today, it's called the Victory March, and it's from the University of Notre Dame, and that was written in 1908. And Sydney, which was then known as South Melbourne in 1961, that's when they adopted the song. But before that, they used to have a song called Springtime in the Rockies by Gene Autry. And that was considered a little bit boring for a team song, and it was updated in 1961. But I think we also need to listen to that song as well and just see whether it's a real team song or not.
When it's springtime in the Rockies, I'll be coming back to you, little sweetheart of the mountains, with your bonny eyes of blue. Once again I'll say I love you, while the birds sing.
So that was Springtime in the Rockies, and as you can see, it's a little bit boring for a team song, as they suggested, and they did change it in 1961, and I think that was a good choice to change it in 1961. But still, the University of Notre Dame song, which is the Victory March, that was written in 1908, and I think we need to change it.
Yes, I will give it a spin towards the end of the program. But Eddie, you also mentioned that Victory March, that song, was used by other football team.
Yes, it was used by another football team. It was actually used by Port Adelaide before they joined the AFL in 1997. And it seems like this is quite a bit of a pattern for the AFL, but once they bring in new teams, they decide, well, you can't have the same colours, you can't have the same team song that you used to have before, because there's already a team that's using those songs or colours. So that's what happened to poor old Port Adelaide in 1997. They had to lose their colours because Collingwood already had those colours. They had to lose their team mascot, which was the Magpies, because Collingwood already had that. And they had to lose their team song because it was used by the Sydney Swans. So I think it's utter humiliation for Port Adelaide. I think it took Port Adelaide quite a while to get used to their new colours, their new mascot, their new team song. Yeah, it's no wonder that they've only won the one premiership since they joined the AFL in 1997.
Port, have to assume their new identity. Players get to familiarise with the, is this our colours? Oh, hang on. Oh, is this our new song? Gee, must be hard.
Round 15 is coming up in this very even, odd season of 2017. We kick off the round 15 with a match between the two form teams, Melbourne and Sydney. What do you think we can expect to see in this game?
all the people in those two cities, right behind them is Melbourne better than Sydney, or Sydney better than Melbourne? Battle of those two cities keep happening all the time, and it's good for the football. Yes, both of them are sort of coming into their sort of peak at the right time. And where are they playing?
They're playing at the MCG, so it's the big match on Friday night at the MCG.
Yes, notionally Melbourne's home game, but Sydney's well used to playing there, or you have to if you are, playing September footy. So it's no hometown advantage there. And Melbourne's regained a few players back. The Sydney's working well. It's a hard one, and I have noticed, Eddie, even though you kept talking about this is even season, odd season, nail biters, cliffhangers, but we haven't had a draw yet.
No, so are you predicting a draw for this game?
It might as well, no one does.
Well, I'd like to point out that Melbourne and Sydney did play a draw in 2011. That's only 6 years ago. And that game was played at the MCG as well. So we could be heading for another draw.
Yes, I boldly predict it's going to be another draw.
Okay, let's go for a draw. On Saturday night, the other feature match that we're looking at, Greater Western Sydney versus Geelong. I've got a feeling that whoever wins this game will be the new flag favourite.
Aren't they already? I thought Geelong at home, GWS at home, favourites. And, GWS has been sort of flag favourite since the beginning. And Geelong has been since round one. So, yeah, from the start. They're both in the top four, and they would like to cement their positions.
It's a very difficult game to tip. And It's a funny old thing having Greater Western Sydney at the top of the table, because they only get a few thousand people turning up to their games in the inner west of Sydney, and they are playing this game in the inner west of Sydney. They'll probably get 8,000 people there, which is not enough for an AFL team. It's the top of the table clash. I'll go for Greater Western Sydney.
Yeah? GWS is a bit suffering from, injuries and stuff. The GWS last week, Sam Reid, he was very impressive. He was just shutting down totally that brilliant midfielder, Dane Zorko. He didn't allow Dane Zorko to have more than 5 or 6 touches throughout the game. And that sort of player plays a big, big role, especially in these tight matches. The taggers, nullifying the opposition's influential players, will play a significant part from now on, and GWS.
So let's look at some quick tips for the rest of the matches in round 15. We've got another Battle of the West. It's Western Bulldogs against the West Coast.
Where are they playing?
This will help you decide who is going to win. The match is being played in Melbourne, and the West Coast have got a very poor record in Melbourne, so I think Western Bulldogs will win this game.
Yes, I think the winner is the Western.
Then Carlton against Adelaide.
Oh, now it's an interesting one. I'll go for Carlton.
I think I'll go for Carlton as well. It's a bit of a yawn match. It's Gold Coast versus North Melbourne.
Yes, I think North may notch up another honourable loss. I think North will go down by just 1 point.
Yet another 1 point honourable loss. Port Adelaide against Richmond. We were talking about Port Adelaide being possibly one of the favourites, possibly not. We're not so sure at the moment, but Richmond aren't doing so badly either this year. I think they're the real deal this year. We've probably got two teams that are the real deal this year, Port Adelaide and Richmond.
Yeah, but are they going to squeeze in the top 4? Or there are only 4 teams allowed in the top 4. So if we've got the GWS, Adelaide, Geelong, there's only one spot left. And will Port be good enough, or Richmond regain its form and squeeze back in?
I think Port Adelaide will win this game, but we have to remember that the top four is not the be-all and end-all in modern-day AFL, because you may recall that Western Bulldogs finished 7th last year. They ended up 7th on the ladder and they still won the premiership. So maybe finishing 7th is a better position than finishing in the top four.
Or do you think Richmond will repeat Dogs Run Home?
They could do that, but I think Richmond probably won't be good enough on Saturday night. I think it's Port Adelaide to win this one.
I'll go for Port as well.
Hawthorn against Collingwood. A few years ago, this would have been the match of the round, easily. Is it still a big match?
Well, it's a big match for both teams. I think the loser definitely has no future no role to play in September. In other words, the winner could still have a very slim chance to make it to September. So it is a big match, but will the people turn up to watch it? Collingwood fans and Hawthorn, up and down, which Hawthorn will turn up, but fans are sort of thinking about 2018 already. It's a sort of game, it matters a lot, but, fans don't care.
Well, I think it's still a very, very big match. These are the two biggest teams in Melbourne as well. Both of these clubs, Hawthorn and Collingwood, they've got 70,000 members each. So that means that if all of their members turn up to the MCG on Sunday, the MCG would have 140,000 people there, and that would be a massive game.
Yeah, you need 2 MCGs.
If all of their members did decide to turn up, what they would have to do is hold 100,000 at the MCG and then have some sort of live broadcast at the Docklands, which is just around the corner, and then the other 40,000 members could go down there and watch it on the big screen.
That would be not the same, You have to watch the real people running around, not on the screen. I think you needed 2 MCGs, and you play first half in MCG 1 and the second half in MCG 2.
That's one thing that I would really like to see. For me, it's still a big match. Lots of supporters for both teams. I'm going for Hawthorn to win this game.
Oh, naturally. Hawthorn's still 14th, 15th, and Collingwood still sitting slightly above. So, naturally, Hawthorn will prevail.
Essendon against Brisbane. Brisbane are at the bottom of the table. Essendon are playing pretty well this year, even though they gave up a 3-goal lead with 3 minutes left to go in the game against Sydney last weekend. I think they should win this game.
They should, Essendon. Even though they lost their captain, Dane Beams, Brisbane might cause a mini upset. Upset of the round maybe, not upset in the upset of the season.
The final game of the round is Fremantle against St Kilda.
Yes, Fremantle, last week everyone thought that Fremantle won't be any good, but they nearly won the game. But that word, nearly, is going to be the key. Fremantle was good enough, but not good enough.
Well, they are playing at Subiaco Oval in Perth. St Kilda don't seem to travel that well when they go over there. And as you experienced in your travels last week, going from west to east and then east to west, and I'm already getting confused talking about it, but I think St Kilda will probably suffer the same sort of consequences that you did last week.
Yes, I can relate to that. And, they turn up and, where am I? It looks like a East Coast. No, that's a West Coast. It's Fremantle. Wow, they're purple. Wow. Yeah, I think Fremantle will snatch this game.
I agree with you entirely. You've been listening to The Protected Zone, where we discuss everything about football, haircuts, styles, colours, history, philosophy, existentialism, absolutely everything that you can think of. I'm Eddie J.
It's Linton and I'm in Padang, West Sumatra.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, you can subscribe to the program through iTunes. You can listen to us on SoundCloud, go to YouTube, or even go to our website, theprotectedzone.com. And we're just going to go out with the new Sydney Swans team song. We'll see you next week.
See you.
Cherry lips, angel eyes. She knows exactly how to tantalize. She's out to get you, danger by design. Cold-blooded vixen, she don't compromise. She's something mystical and colored lights. So far from typical, but take my advice. Before you play with fire, do think twice. And if you get burned, don't be surprised. Lifted, drifting higher than the ceiling. Ooh, baby, it's the ultimate feeling. You got me lifted, feeling so gifted. Sugar, how you get so fly? Sugar, how you get so fly? Ooh, sugar, how you get so fly? Hey, sugar, sugar, how you get so fly? Ooh, sugar, how you get so fly? Sweet talking lady, love how you entice. Sugar with just the right amount of spice. Charming, alluring, everyone's desire. She's out to get you, you can't run, you can't hide. She's something mystical.